ramming through a quickie pay increase for some workers.
But some other county workers have been waiting weeks for their raises. KMBC 9's Michael Mahoney reports.
Your county counselor answered that. I think that's...
Last week, most county workers wanted and got a 3% raise. Today, legislator Bob Stringfield grabbed the county budget and complained that County Executive Catherine Shields pushed through those raises, but didn't tell the legislators the effect on the budget.
And it's got appropriations in here. How can we as legislators vote on something when we can't refer to some of this stuff?
And that put the county finance director, Troy Thomas, today on the hot seat. He says 83 now empty county jobs won't be filled, saving just over $1 million, and that'll cover the raises for these folks. Meanwhile, the union workers in County Prosecutor Mike Sanders' office, and that includes some prosecutors, are still waiting for their raises.
We didn't receive the MOUs until, in fact...
The labor contract.
Yeah, the labor contracts until yesterday.
I think we passed the ordinances, the legislature passed the ordinances almost 4 weeks ago.
Sanders wouldn't comment on if he thought the delay was part of the ongoing feud with the Shields administration. County executive was not at today's meeting. So while a lot of county workers got their pay raises and their paychecks last Friday, members of the prosecutor's office, who struck their deal 4 weeks ago, are still waiting for County Executive Catherine Shields to sign the contract. Michael Mahoney, KMBC 9 News.
The way they handed out pay raises for county employees. The problem? County Prosecutor Mike Sanders got big raises for his attorneys. Other county workers got upset, so they got raises too. But to pay for all of that, the county then had to eliminate dozens of unfilled positions.
I still don't know what the impact that's going to have. I asked, I'm concerned about public safety positions. I asked for information on that and did not get that yet.
So far, no reaction from other lawmakers. Meantime, the prosecutor and county executive are trying to reach a compromise without continuing a public fight. Well, time now.
I've never seen anything happen like what happened with this ordinance, 3642. Now, there's some things that are troubling with this thing, and one of them is that I think we have some violations of some of our own legislative rules as far as this ordinance and the way it was conducted. And what I'm talking about is we have a rule that states when you get an ordinance, which we received this ordinance, the original ordinance, and it states in there, one of our rules says that we should have physical numbers in there that indicate the impact of this particular law or this ordinance. That was not given to us at all. And how can we do our due diligence as legislators up here if we're not given the time and we're not given the information as far as financials, and we're not able to look at our budget? We have a budget book that we're given, and it's got appropriations in here. How can we as legislators vote on something when we can't refer to some of this stuff? And I'm not sure why we had to rush into that day. There's some other things that bother me about this, the way this thing was handled. The thing of perfecting an ordinance. It calls for it has to be in its final form. But yet we had 3 or 4 substitutes that were given that day that replaced this particular ordinance. Now, if you go to the legislative rules, it calls when you substitute something, it mentions a draft. A draft is not in a final form. So we've either got to look at our legislative rules, and we've got to change them to conform to give us the chance to do the due diligence as far as legislators here to be able to vote on something and to give it the right decision for the taxpayers out there and for the Jackson County citizens. There's a thing called unanimous consent. Unanimous consent, when you try to perfect something, this is the second time I've gone through this thing as a legislator up here. The first time I got overruled by the county council. On this one here, with the short notice, there was 3 legislators that objected. That's not unanimous consent. What happened there is we objected to the change. We wanted time to look at this. We were not given the time to look at this. We should have been at least given notice to be able to look at this, and I think that the public should have been given notice, and they should have got copies of these substitutes, 2, 3, and 4, to be able to look at this. I think the media should have been able to get this stuff, and I think interested citizens should have got this. Now we're in a kind of a dilemma now in that I'm not sure where we're going to get the funding for this. I'm not able to, as a legislator, I'm not able to make, I don't think, a due diligent decision as far as what I'm going to do, in the future as far as I think everybody should get a pay raise. That's no problem. But if we'll remember, as legislators in 2003, we got a plan from the county executive that talked about merit raises. And some of this, the across-the-board thing, Mr. Finley tried to pass a resolution back in 2003, and the same people that voted for this voted against it back in 2003 as far as giving across-the-board increases to our employees. They were saying, no, we need to go by merit. So I'm confused with some of this stuff. So I think basically what I'm saying is that I've got some rule violations. So with the county councilor not here, with the finance officer here, I would just like to ask one question. Why weren't we provided the fiscal information so that we could make that decision if it called for that in the rules?
Well, what I recall was the ordinance that allows the county executive to make all necessary transfers to fund the additional 3% increase to all employees except for the prosecutor's office and the judicial branch until they came the judicial branch came up.
Yeah. Rule 23, physical note, says a proposed ordinance or resolution contain a fiscal note which specifies the estimated expenditure. It did not have that on there. Occasioned by the ordinance or resolution, the source of the funds, and whether or not the cost was included in the annual budget. We didn't have that information, yet we voted for it. But we were in violation of our own rules.
Okay.
We should have had that in there so that we can do our due diligence as legislators up here. And there's some other things too, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to the county council that's not here some of the violations I feel we had in there with this, and take it from there since no one's here to address.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Henry, one thing that I noticed later on was that our rules have always called for bracketing or underlining when there's changes made on an amendment. Of course, you can adopt the amendment if the votes are there, but that did not show in the final amendment that was handed out. I don't know if it was D or whatever it was. There were several of them, but I think we ought to make sure that the rules are followed so you can read those resolutions or those changes good, and that something is coming out, it's bracketed, something's going in, is underlined.
Yeah, the way the rule actually is written, it talked about showing bracketing and underlining when amendment occurs in committee. But you're absolutely right. By practice, that's exactly what we would have done and probably should have done on that.
Any other questions? I too would like, anytime we've got 5 amendments to an ordinance, I too would like certainly a little more time than we had last week to look at 5 different amendments. We had a written ordinance on the agenda that was nowhere near the end result of what we passed. Nowhere near. But anyway. Any other questions? We have a motion. Any other questions? Okay. Our next meeting will be, the next legislative meeting is scheduled on Monday, July 22nd, 2005, 2:30 p.m. in Independence Courthouse Annex. Motion to, okay?
Second.
We're adjourned. Well done.